Bro, what I will say about this movie, just before we get into the details of it, I haven't been this freaked out, but also not able to turn away from a horror movie in a very, very long time.
So let's rewind for a second.
Okay.
So we're brothers. We've known each other forever now. I told you about this film, and I was like, "Hey, you got to watch this. It's disturbing." What was your without even watching, seeing what the summary is? Nothing. What was your initial reaction?
So this is my when normal people say it's disturbing, I'm like, okay, it's probably not that bad. But when somebody who I know loves horror movies like I do says that something is disturbing, it's like I still want to see it, but I go in like I have to prepare myself mentally for how disturbed I'm about to be. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're back for another episode of the Film Frequency. It's one of your hosts, CEO Haize, and I'm joined by my brother, the prodigal one, JB. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, Haize? What's going on, Film Family?
Man, so we are here this week to discuss a fucking crazy ass movie, bro. Like this movie, this film, the platform that we're gonna talk about. Like, I don't know how you found it, but it's funny because I swear, like after you brought it up to me and told me about it, like there's been like a lot of like a notice for it going around. Like I don't know if you've noticed it, but there's like a lot of reviews that are popping up for it in podcasting and everything. So it's crazy. But I'm excited to talk about this movie. You excited to talk about it?
Yeah, I really am, man. I really am. I really enjoyed it. We'll obviously break down everything, but yeah, I came across it because for those who don't know, I'm trying to embark on this journey where I'm trying to watch 200 plus movies, all with 2020 release dates, whether it's wide, limited, streaming. I'm not doing that great on that 200. I think I'm on like 35 or something right now, so I'm behind. And then with all this shit that's happening, it's gonna make it even harder. However, this film just came out on Netflix, I think like 2 or 3 days ago, so that's how I came across it.
Yeah. All right, cool. And we'll talk about it. Before we get into that though, I just, with like the all the movies being postponed and the lack of movie news, like people are getting really, really creative. And I don't know if you've seen this or not. I purposely didn't like tell you about this beforehand because I want your actual reaction to it. So like somebody went through and edited Batman's armor in Batman versus Superman to make it look like Iron Man's armor. And it's just like these people have too much time on their hands, bro. Then on top of that, someone went in and added Wonder Woman to the final scene in Avengers Endgame. Like this is people
Oh
are
my
just
god,
having way too much time on their hands.
that's fun though.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about like some of the news that well, at first, it looked like it was actually going to happen. Wonder Woman was going to go straight to VOD. And it seemed like it even showed up on listings on some VOD sites for like 2 days. And then Warner Brothers decided they were going to pull back on it. I don't know if there's like some insider news on maybe the theaters may open soon or not. But what do you think that Warner Brothers seemingly was extremely close to releasing Wonder Woman straight to VOD, Wonder Woman 1984?
At this point, not only for Wonder Woman but everything else, I think it's a matter of perfect timing, because if they do have inside information and they do think the theater is going to be opening up within the next 2 weeks, it doesn't make sense releasing anything on VOD. However, if this is going to be a long thing, like you were saying, you're from Columbus, Ohio, you guys are on lockdown pretty much until like April. If it's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
long extended thing like that, you might as well go on VOD because you need some revenues better than no revenue.
That is true. That is true.
The
Um,
problem
Go
the
ahead.
the problem that comes with VOD though is when you have shit on VOD, you risk shit being pirated and then being on the illegal streams or whatever, the black market streams. So, but regardless, they're still on the streams anyway. So even when they're out in the movie theaters, so you might as well, again, if this is gonna be a long period of time, at least put something on VOD.
Yeah, yeah, and something so like this whole thing with VOD, it just makes me think of like, does this have a chance to like shift um theaters and stuff forever? Because I say like they're always going to be blockbusters, right? But the movies are now gambles, right? No matter how much the studio puts in them, is it going to be a better risk versus reward thing to release it just on VOD? Because when you think about it, like yeah, we may not spend $10 to go to the theater to see something like New Mutants, for example, which I am. I'm just using that as an example. But if you put it on VOD, sure. Like some people may pay 15, $20 and all go over there and watch it together, a group of friends. And you may, I mean, that's how cult classics were always built. So do you think that this has a chance to make any permanent lasting effects as far as like the way the VOD is looked at?
You mean like in terms of VOD only, or VOD is another service?
VOD as far as like maybe it coming out, maybe like something that only has a limited theatrical release also releases on VOD sound. And we see a little bit of that now.
Yeah, I think
Specifically with like some horror films and indie films, but do you see the bigger studios now releasing movies that are going to be VOD and in some theaters at the same time, possibly in
I,
the future?
I don't see that unless it's again something limited release.
Mm,
But if it's something wide release, I just don't see it because they're losing out on revenue by doing that. Also the theaters are not gonna like that because the theaters don't make money on the tickets. Their money is made on concession
yeah.
stands. So you're taking money away from the theaters. Now, I've always said I wish that there was some sort of platform where every time a new movie comes out, it's also available purchased by home. And I will gladly pay 15 or 20 bucks a movie to watch a new release because it's the same thing I would have paid in the movie theater. However, now instead of paying for me and my wife, it's just me. And number two, I don't get tempted with all that concession shit that's like way overpriced. And
Yeah.
also, I'm in the comfort of my home. But I've only ever seen one thing ever to do that, and I don't even know if it still exists. This is maybe 5 years ago, or maybe even more than that. And I'm gonna after we're done with the show, I'm gonna look it up and see if I can find it. But it was a service where it was clearly for rich people. It was $20,000 a month, and basically, yeah, every new released movie that came out, you got it streaming to this, and they gave you a box. And I don't know how the
I
whole,
have heard about that. I have heard
but
about that.
this was like maybe 5, 8 years ago. But it was like $20,000 a month, and I was like, what the hell? I was thinking more like maybe $50 a month.
I mean, yeah, it's just gonna be interesting to see how like the theaters rebound from this. And there's like some talk that AMC theaters has a chance to like go out of business almost permanently because of this. Like they're losing millions of dollars a day being closed. So I mean that's hard to bound with. And on the video I just dropped on the Film Frequency YouTube page actually today, I talked about the fact that move, like a lot of people have this opinion that once this coronavirus thing is, they're just going to release all the movies and it's going to be blockbuster after block. It's not, because the release dates are picked very strategically by the studios to give themselves enough space from other movies that may have similar audiences, because they try to maximize on their dollars. And also they're gonna have to ramp back up promotion of these movies. So it's not going to be, and all of a sudden, that's why you see something like Fast and Furious pushing it a year away off the rip, like as soon as they announced it, because they want to have a chance to really build that back up. I'm honestly surprised Bond only pushed back like 6 months or so, because I mean, it's James Bond. It's the last one with Daniel Craig, so they really don't need a lot of promotion, I think. But like the other things that are going on, like it's not going to be easy as, oh, the theaters are back open now, all these movies automatically get to date set. Like it's going to take some time, and some of these movies may not see a release for a year and a half.
Yeah, and even more than that, and even more than the shutdown, it's not the shutdown, it's the reopening that's the issue, because the country is going through rough times at this point, and I think the worst is still yet to come. So there's economic fallout from all this that's happening. So after we recover, and I'm sure we will eventually recover. However, if that's a week, a month, however long it is, we will recover. But after coming out of an economic crisis, do you think everyone's like, okay, yeah, let me go ahead and hit the movie theaters? No, people are not thinking about the movies. People are thinking about, okay, how am I going to put food on the table?
Exactly.
How am I gonna pay the rent? How am I gonna pay my mortgage? How am I gonna pay my kids' college tuition? Whatever the case is. So those things that are more kind of wants and recreational are gonna be on the back burner for a little while until everything picks back itself up.
Yeah, and then there's also going to be some people, even though, like, let's say they announce tomorrow, coronavirus is at a minimum. We pretty much got it out of hand.
People still gonna be
Movie
scared.
theaters open back up. People are going to still be, yeah, are going to be scared to go back out in public and just act like this. This is going to have effects on like the American psyche. Well, worldwide. It's not just Americans for quite a while. It's going to be a while before life just returns back to normal. So, it's just going to be interesting to watch. And like both of us, like I know you play the stock market. I've worked in finance forever. It's just going to be interesting to see like what is the long-term economic effects of this, and people losing their retirement because the stock market's going down. Like 401ks are like
401k is poof. Don't even look at your note to self or to anyone listening. If you have 401k, don't even open that envelope.
honestly like 6 months, like 6 to 8 months. Don't even look at your 401k because it's just going to depress you. And then like the people who are rushing to take it out, it's like, no, don't do that, because like
Do not do that.
then you're accepting the loss. It's going like it's going to eventually pick back up. How long that takes, I don't know. I can't say, but it's going to eventually pick back up. So you guys just got to deal with it and just not look
Gotta
at
wait it out.
don't look at it. But we are getting off on a whole entire
I know.
tangent.
I was about to start talking about like day traders and shit.
Exactly.
Way off
And that's part of the reason why we can literally sit here and do this podcast forever on anything, because we can find anything to talk about. But we do need to talk about this film, The Platform.
Yes.
A foreign language film that's dubbed in English if you watch it on Netflix. Bro, what I will say about this movie, just before we get into the details of it, I haven't been this freaked out, but also not able to turn away from a horror movie in a very, very long time.
So let's rewind for a second.
Okay.
So we're brothers. We've known each other forever now. I told you about this film, and I was like, "Hey, you got to watch this. It's disturbing." What was your without even seeing what the summary is, nothing? What was your initial reaction?
So this is my when normal people say it's disturbing, I'm like, okay, it's probably not that bad. But when somebody who I know loves horror movies like I do says that something is disturbing, it's like I still want to see it, but I go in like I have to prepare myself mentally for how disturbed I'm about to be.
I think I even told you don't eat, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So where do you want to start, man?
I guess we can start with the premise. So the premise of this movie is that they are in a jail, I guess for better lack of words. They're in a jail or confined somewhere. And there are 100 different floors. I can't remember how many floors they end up finding.
Well, at the beginning, we don't know how many floors there are. In reality, there's 333 floors.
Okay.
334 if you count the floor 0.
Yeah, okay. And so the way that it works is that every 30 days they switch to a different floor. That doesn't sound so bad. But the thing that makes it bad is there's a platform of food that descends to every floor, and it gets so like floor 1 gets the best, right? Floor 2 gets the leftovers from floor 1, and it gets progressively worse and less as this thing descends to all the levels of the platform. And on top of that, our main character is someone who voluntarily went in there for a college degree, which is just crazy.
They've all voluntarily gone here.
I thought someone was sent, so maybe that's my mistake.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a jail, but think about it. It's a place that you go there to get brownie points, if you want to call it that. So our main character went there because for 6 months and he wants to get an accredited diploma. We also meet another character who we'll get into who I believe he murdered somebody, and it was either he gets jail or 1 year in this confinement, and then he gets out. So if you want something, something in this world, they can grant you that wish, basically. And they'll tell you what the terms are in terms of, duration and stuff like that to take process in this experiment.
And so it's so that is alone, like restricting food from somebody is always going to be something, right, that gets the human psyche going. But then there are other levels to this, like his initial cellmate basically.
Yeah, you have a cellmate.
Yeah, ties him up and tries to kill him. And so like this, and there's a woman in there that's looking for her daughter, which we don't know if there's actually a kid there or not for the majority of this movie. It's just it's so many different not to be to have a pun or whatever. There's so many levels to this movie, right? But what did you think about it overall?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the concept, whoever thought of this is, number one, fucking sick. And number two, they're freaking brilliant because it's a great concept. Yeah. And I mean, you see the main character and his first cellmate. It's an older guy who's been in there for about 9 or 10 months. He's on a 12-month bid, basically. And they're on, when the movie starts, they're on level 48. So when this table, or like you said, this platform comes down, there's a lot of kind of garbage. I mean, it's still food, but it's like all kind of like, there's like spitting it, and it's just, but the older guy, he's just going in on that food like it's Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And the other guy, this is like his first day. He's like, oh, I'm not eating this. He doesn't even eat anything.
He takes an apple.
Yeah, he took an apple. Okay, so he just took an apple, and then you come to learn like, hey, you got to take what you can get because like Hayes said, in 30 days, you don't know where you're gonna be. And my first thought was like, just save food for like save some and ration out. But you found out if you take any food off the plate, off the table, and you keep it, they'll freeze you out. They could freeze you out or burn up the room. So you'll eventually die if you do that because it's a form of cheating. But he goes from level 48, and then they wake up on level 133. And like he said, when he wakes up, he's tied up because there's another part to this that we haven't talked about yet. Because now, let's say you were on level, 80 something. You're not getting any food by the time that gets to you.
Yeah.
Okay, you could maybe hold out 30 days without eating. One can survive 30 days without eating. Now, let's say the 30 days hits now and you switch to level 95. That's another 30 days you're going on food. You're dying.
Yeah.
So the only form of food you have is what happens when they wake up in the second part, level 133.
Is your cellmate.
Is your cellmate, and the main character is tied up. And the guy's like, listen, I'm not going to like kill you. I'm just going to take little morsels of your flesh. And on top of all that, he's like, don't worry, I'll feed you some too.
It's and like hearing that described, people would automatically think like torture porn-esque, and it's not that at all. Like I want to make sure that I make that clear. There's not a lick of torture porn or anything in this movie. And so it's like, I don't know, like it's such a breakdown of the human psyche and how important food is, right? And what it can do to people. And so like, and when his first cellmate has him locked up, the woman that I mentioned before, who is looking for a child that we don't know if is actually in the platform or not, saves him. And then like we get all these weird scenes of her like nursing him back to health, and like it's just weird. And you're looking at it and you're like, why would somebody do this? It's actually explained later in the movie. And then his next cellmate is actually the lady that he interviewed with to get in the platform. And I can't remember the reason why she was there, but she brought her dog. It's just crazy. And so she like didn't think it was as bad as what it was. So you see her trying to rationalize it, and she's like yelling to the people below her, I've prepared 2 portions for you. Prepare 2 similar portions for the people below you. And they're like, yeah, lady, shut the fuck up. Exactly. We're trying to eat. And then eventually like the main character, he gets behind it and he like yells down like, I will shit all over your food if you don't listen to this woman. And that's when we start switching, right? It starts switching from like a psychological thriller type, like horror type thing, until like now it's this thing of, okay, how can we get people on board, until he gets to his next cellmate, who I forgot the name of the black guy. Forgive me.
I think his name was Barat or something.
Barat. And then so they have now they eventually cook up this idea of descending and sending a message to the people who are doing it by saving a part of food. Like, and before that, like that scene when he tries to climb out with the rope and the lady shits on his face, bro, I lost my shit.
Me literally. So yeah, I mean, just to rewind a little bit, it's crazy because like you said, there was the woman who's part of the administration. She was the one interviewing people. She didn't even know how bad it was. And he asked, how many levels is it? And she's like, there's 200 levels and that's it. Well, when the change happened, they woke up on level 202, I believe. And when he woke up, found that she had hung herself, because at this point, she didn't even know. She knew she was pretty much screwed. She's like, well, how many levels does this thing have? She thought it was 200. They woke up to level 202. And then he started thinking about it more rational, which she was doing, which is like, hey, you know what? If from level 1, they ration food, this can go all the way down if you ration. But also, I kind of thought about this in a different way. It's kind of like social class. The higher level you're in, these are the rich people. Yeah. And what kind of made me start thinking about that is when he was with the old guy, which I forgot what the old guy name is. It's something like Tiramisu or something to that effect. Yeah. But when the main character was trying to talk to the people below him respectfully, he's like, fuck those people, and he started pissing on them. The old guy. I don't know if you remember that part.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I'm like, this is like life. Like the people on top are always trying to shit or piss on the people below them, regardless of what their level is. And it's, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of socialism in this and stuff like that. So it's crazy.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a lot of levels to this movie when you really sit down and break it down, and they're all great. Like whoever wrote this movie, I'll be looking out for them. I need to search to see what else they've written because it was great. And like this movie was done with like little to no budget. And it makes sense because you got to think like they probably honestly just had one room and they just redressed it every scene.
I'm sure the bulk of their budget was payroll and catering.
Yeah. Because and the food when it starts looks amazing.
It does.
And we get like one scene with like the cook and he like a hair gets in it and shit like.
Really, I missed that.
Yeah, it was one scene where they like showed the people who were preparing the food, and before they sent it down, I guess who was supposed to be the main chef found a single hair, and he's going through looking at the other people and like putting it up against their head to see whose hair it is, and he gets pissed off because like you would think like they're descending it in this prison. Who would give a fuck if there's a hair in their food? But he's like pissed off about it, and I think he smacks him. But this movie is just it's great. Like I hate to it's one of those things that you have to see. It's hard to sit down and break it down without giving too much away. And I know we're spoilers. We have no problem talking about that. But even us talking about it with full spoilers, it really doesn't do the movie justice because you have to see the way that our main character goes through such a transformation. Like you see him when he starts off and he's really like, oh, well, this can work. This. And then by the end, like he's hitting people upside the head with pipes when they get out of line. And he's ready to go full militant. What did you think, though, about how they depicted like each one of his cellmates after they died, like playing into his psyche when he would sleep? What did you think about that?
I love that actually because that gave you said it before, but this movie has so many layers. It gave another layer that like all these people who his cellmates, they're still in his brain and they're still talking to him, and it just adds another layer to not only his character but just the film altogether. One thing we didn't talk about is everybody who comes into this experiment, they're allowed one item to bring into it. Like you said, the woman brought in her dog. The older gentleman brought in like a knife. He chose to bring in a book. My question to you is, what if you were to, go into this endeavor, what would be your one item you would choose to bring in with you?
Oh, what would be my one item? Like having full knowledge of this movie after the fact now would be like a metal baseball bat or some shit. Beforehand, like if somebody just told me, hey, you're going to go to this place, we'll give you whatever you want after 30 days, whatever. I probably would have brought a book too, honestly, just to pass the time.
Yeah. Same concept here. If I knew it was going to be something like this, I would have definitely bought some sort of weapon. Definitely. Yeah. Without that, probably like, a month's supply of Jergens or something.
You don't want to chafe while you're there. You don't
exactly.
You don't want to chafe. So ultimately, like the ending of this movie, with him and Barat.
I think his name was Barat. Yeah. What do you think? Before you go to the end, what do you think about their plan of? And basically, what the plan was is they're like, you know what, we're gonna stay on this bitch because they were at level 6, which is pretty high up. And they're like, we're going to stay on it. We're not going to feed anybody in the first 50 levels because they've eaten well already over the last couple of days. We'll start feeding people at 51, but we're going to portion it. And in their head also, they were thinking there's 250 levels.
Yeah.
Because the main character had counted the clicks. What he didn't take into account was if both people in the platform are dead, the thing doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So it's really more than 250, but he didn't know that. But what do you think about that idea? How would you have gone about it? Is this the best way?
I think that they did the best that they could with it. Like, honestly, I think that was a pretty good plan for the knowledge that they had. My only thing is that you're at level 6, man. And I think at that point, like the main character only had like that was like his last 30 days in that. It
was going to be his last 30 days.
I would have been like, fuck it. When I get
roll that dice.
When I get out of here, I'll bring all awareness I can to what you guys are going through in here. But I'm getting the fuck out of here.
That's what I was going to say. I'll be like, yo, I'm going to eat fucking good right now. And then my last 30 days, whatever I eat now will make me survive the last 30 days. But nah, he want to play hero and he want to get the message across and all this shit. Fuck that. Like you said, I'll get the message across after I leave here.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I had to do this on a serious note, I had to do this and like, I'm talking about like your life depends on it. I would have taken somewhat of a similar approach, except rather than ration out food, honestly, and I know this sounds crazy, and I promise you I'm not crazy, I would have literally just killed everybody. I would have went down level to level and kill people. Anybody that approached me, I would kill. I wouldn't just go there and kill them, but I would if they approach me, I would just kill them. Now, if I was this is if I was the main character. If I was someone that's going to be in there for the next year or 8 months or 10 months, I would go in there just killing people and just try to kill as many people as possible.
Yeah.
As bad as that sounds, now you take that because you find out that it originally started with 333 floors times 2 people, 666. So
I
that's
didn't think about that.
yeah, that's where they got that. So now, if you, a lot of people are gonna end up dying after the first month or 2 months. Half those people are probably more than half is already dead. So you go by killing people. Hopefully, within like 3-4 months, you're down to like a number where that food can probably be sustainable, even if everybody's binging on it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's one of those things that it's like you can say all day what you think you do in that situation, but it's difficult to put yourself in that mindset because until you're hungry, you
Yeah.
don't know what you're capable of, right? So the idea of killing everyone is a great idea, but it's like, all right, you eventually will run out of it. There's going to be somebody stronger than you, which they kind
Yes.
of ran into, or more prepared, or more equipped, or whatever. It's just, you know, that is a point of sending the message by killing everyone on the floors below you, because then it's like, all right, what are you guys going to do? And I love the way that this movie ended because we really don't know what happened to the main character, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, they're playing with solid, and I like how they went down with like a straight strong arm plan, and then like the older black guy was like, this is what you guys need to do. You need to try to do this first and then smack them upside their head, which they did try, and it was pretty successful on a lot of floors until they got to the people who were really desperate that you have to use force. So it all made sense there. But we do get back into the lady who was going floor to floor looking for this theoretical daughter that we
I
didn't know
think her name
was.
was Minaru, if I'm not mistaken.
We didn't know if the daughter was actually a real thing or she was hallucinating because of the lack of food. We
Sure.
do find out the daughter ends up being real. First, before that, he sees the woman being killed. Like there's some guy just going batshit crazy, stabbing
Yeah.
the shit out of her. And you would think that, all right, that was going to happen eventually because you can only pull your card so long. But it turns out they did find this little girl. I forgot what floor she was on, and she was just hiding underneath the bed. No telling how long she was there. What did you think about turning the little girl ultimately into what they said was the message? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so like you said that from earlier, the black guy, I don't know what his name was. Like he was like the you know, the wise man or whatever you want to call him. And he was like, listen, you need to get something that represents the message. And
Mhm.
at first, that message was the panna cotta. They're like,
Yeah.
if we eat everything, but we cannot eat the panna cotta. That's the message, because what they wanted was they wanted the platform to go all the way to the bottom level, which at that point we didn't know what that was, but
Mhm.
they wanted that when all this was done and they send the platform back up to level 0, there was still something there to show, like, hey, we didn't eat all the food. Like, we're gonna do this, which
Mhm.
they call the message, and that's what they were trying to do, the panna cotta. But then they saw the kid, and the kid was clearly hungry, so they gave the kid to eat the panna cotta, and the
Mhm.
kid became the message. And yeah, I was throughout the movie, I had a film the kid would pop up eventually, but
Mhm.
just the way it was done, and just us talking about this right now, just to take a step back, I can't remember the last time that a movie came out that was such a it caused so much talk and so much, and I'm sure anyone that sees this film and talks to somebody else that's seen it, it's going to generate the same types of conversation that we're having, because
Mhm.
and that's what films like this I love, because it generates that talk. Things like Shutter Island and Inception and Memento you mentioned earlier and things like that. I love movies like this that generate conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what ultimately, like, I think that people socialize the most around food, which is like a big part of this movie, but also around things like TV or movies, things that get people started and people can have a different perspective on it. And so like this definitely does that. I think the ending like leaves so much to be like, all right, what happened? Like I love movies that don't have definitive endings sometimes. Like I don't like it when like some movies don't have definitive endings just because it seems like the writers got lazy or whatever. But when it doesn't have a definitive ending purposely to leave you to think and leave you wondering what the fuck is going to happen after this. Like our main character, we see him walking off. We don't know. Like he's at this point almost at the bottom level. Like we don't know if he's still going to get out on time because of what he pulled and what he did. But more than that, we don't even know what happened to the little girl. We don't even know if she made it. Like all we see is the platform going fast down these. For all we know, they could have sent her to her death.
Yeah, because we see the platform like going back up to level 0, but like you said, for all we know, she got to level 0. They're like, "Oh, what are you doing here? Break her neck."
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
So I I understand the ending where they want to leave it open and kind of for your interpretation, but I really wish I would like to know what happened to the little girl
Yeah.
and what happened to him. Does he walk into another room and they just shoot him in the head?
Yeah.
Or does he get his diploma? Is this legit? Like there's still unanswered questions here. But again, I understand why they did, how they ended, why they ended it this way in a open, quote unquote platform.
And this is what I want to say is this is why things and platforms like Netflix are so important, because if there had not been a Netflix or a VOD or whatever, we
Never seen
probably
it.
would have never seen this movie, right? Or this would have been one of those
I,
movies that somebody had on tape and then like the tape gets passed around. And of course, it may never get to you, but only a handful of people ever find out about it. This movie was amazing, and for people who can't get past foreign language, we've talked about it before. I used to be one of those people until I got older. This is one of those movies that honestly, it didn't even like. Usually the people's lips and the mouth, the words not being quite right really gets to me. I was so engulfed in what was
oh, you
happening, I
watched
didn't
the
even pay
dubbed?
attention. Yeah, dub. Yeah,
No, I just
you watch the
watch.
subtitles.
Yeah, here's the
Yeah.
thing. Like for me, watching foreign films is extremely easy. Um, for those who don't know, I was born in New York, but my background is Guyanese, which is in South America from Guyana. But our ancestors were Indian, so my culture they watch a lot of Indian movies, and every Indian movie has subtitles. So I grew up with subtitle movies.
That
So
makes
when I
sense.
watch a film and it has subtitles, it's like second nature to me because I've been doing it since I was like 5 years old.
Mhm.
So regard all it is just a different language from Hindi to Spanish or Korean or whatever. So international movies, foreign movies have never been an issue. But going back to the platform, like you said, if we didn't have something like Netflix or VOD, we would never see this. But which is, I'm telling you this right now, and I know I've been making some bold predictions. This film is going to get nominated for something in one of the awards for. I'm not saying they're going to win, but they're going to get nominated for the foreign category because this movie is so small and so indie like, but the buzz being generated is crazy. It's like although after I saw this movie, I was like, oh, you know what? I wish like there was like, other reviews I can check out
Mhm.
or breakdowns, usually have breakdowns. I went on YouTube and there was like 15 videos. And this is remember the movie just came out like 2 days ago, so I'm
Yeah.
sure there's gonna be more and more in the next upcoming weeks. So I was surprised by the actual buzz behind it. Not only that, apparently Collider did a breakdown of this movie 6 months ago, which I didn't even know.
Yeah, and it did air at a film at the Toronto Film Festival in that was in 2019, so that was like either late last year, like mid last year. So this movie's been circulating through like critics. Like this movie has been apparently pretty well known amongst critics. Because I listened to another podcast in which they said like they've been dying to talk about this movie for like 3 months or so, and so it's like I'm glad that it came out. I'm glad that people are talking about it, but this is definitely going to be one that I don't know if it like Netflix movies really don't win a lot of awards. Hey, we saw what happened to The
What?
Irishman.
Well,
Come
oh
on,
yeah, yeah.
bro.
I'm sorry. No, no, no. That was a bad reaction. They don't win, but they get nominated, but not
Yeah,
win.
they get nominated. They get
Right, right.
nominated, but they don't win a lot of awards. But I can definitely see a nomination coming for this. Um, I mean, as of right now, it's the best international film of 2020.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
So, and I think that Parasite winning is going to have a new respect for international films, and so hopefully that continues. I'm not saying that this isn't at the level of Parasite. Like this is not nearly as great as a movie as Parasite. I would never say that, but hopefully that it catches some of that buzz of people now being more open to seeing foreign films.
So I want to make one statement and then I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
We always talk about, I know we don't really give two shits, but we always talk about tomato meter. And we know
Mhm.
like the critics are super harsh on tomato meter. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
What do you think the rating for this movie is? They don't have an audience score, just a tomato meter score.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 85%.
84%.
Wow.
Which is for tomato meter, they're really critical.
Yeah.
That's really high. Now, my question to you is: you brought up Parasite. Do you see similarities between this movie and Parasite in the same terms of social class and things like that?
Yeah, I mean,
Level.
especially like because I hadn't thought about it in the social class aspect, but it definitely, if when you paint it in that light and decide to look at it from that perspective, it definitely has some of the same themes that Parasite has as far as like class and everything. And what's funny is that this is a Spanish film. This film is its original language is Spanish, but it goes to show that classism is a thing in every culture, no matter where you are, and it's one of those overarching themes that can be that's universal, right? Everyone understands high class, low class, and being in the middle. Like everyone understands that to a degree. So this is one of those films that I think can speak to almost anyone.
Yeah, and that, like you said, doesn't matter where you're from, language you speak. This social classes exist in every country, in every language. It's just
Yeah,
the way it is. But yeah,
absolutely.
man, I mean, if you haven't seen this movie or haven't heard it, I'm telling you, I know we gave you spoilers, but here's the thing: even if you see, this is one of the films that even if you know the spoiler, it doesn't really matter because it's not like oh, you're trying to figure something out at the end.
Hmm.
No. The only major spoiler there is we really haven't given any major spoilers because it's just something you have to watch. There's no
Yeah,
spoil. There's nothing to spoil. It's just you just have to watch the film.
yeah. Well, that's it, man. I got nothing else on this film. I think. Well, we got to give our ratings. So what's your rating for this one?
So, just talking in terms of 2020 movies, we've gotten a lot of crap. So just going based off that standard, I like to go off of 5 stars, which I usually do. For this one, I'm gonna go ahead and rate this 4 out of 5 stars. I mean, I really enjoyed it. The cycle, I know the genre is horror, which we've
Mhm.
talked about this over and over. I don't know why this. How is this horror? I don't know, but this is more thriller, psychological thriller to me. But
Mhm.
yeah, I have to go ahead and give it four stars, definitely. How about you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's I can't give it a four, and the reason why I can't give it a four is I think there's they didn't over explain, but there are some things that I think could have benefited from being explained a little bit more in the movie. So I a solid 3.5 for me.
Yeah, I was contemplating back and forth on a 3.5 or 4, but in the end, I went with 4 because, yeah, certain things were kind of lackluster. We didn't get a lot of
Mhm.
substance and story from the guy, his backstory, and a lot of these characters we didn't get much backstory. It was just the then and now. But
Mhm.
because of the concept being so strong and all the different elements in the film, that's why I went with 4 star. But yeah, 3.5, 4 star. That's pretty much par.
Yeah. Well, that's it, bro. I think this is one of the better films that I've seen on Netflix in a while, especially that I didn't have any like expectations or awareness of beforehand. So, really glad that we got to talk about it. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I think next up we do have Spencer. Oh, it's not Spencer Knows Best. It's a spinoff of that. Spencer Confidential is the
Yes.
name of it. With the characters from Spencer Knows Best coming up next, Bloodshot, and then we're really at this point we're at the behest of what kind of ever comes out on Netflix and stuff until like theaters come back. So for that, our listeners, our viewers on YouTube, if you have any movies that you want to suggest that we watch and review, we are completely open to during this time, especially with social distancing and until we get back on track with newer releases. So reach out to us, send us any suggestions there. But we'll always content is not a problem here. As if
Right.
you can't tell, me and JB never are going to be hard to come up with content. But JB, any parting words? If not, give them your social media and let's get the hell out of here.
No, you want us to maybe not for the next 1 or 2 episodes, but for the future, want us to throw up a poll out there?
Yeah, let's put up. Let's not. The thing is, I really would like to open it up to some suggestions of things we don't
Okay,
even use. So put up a poll with three and leave the fourth option as other for people to put in suggestions.
you got it. We'll talk about off air. We'll talk about what those 3 options are going to be,
Yeah,
and then we'll put others so someone can people can put in their own options. And
absolutely.
yeah, that's pretty much it. Parting words: go out and watch this film. It's on Netflix. There's no excuse for you not to watch it. It's freaking Netflix. Everyone has Netflix. And there's other. I'm sure it's on other streamings and shit like that. Anyway, I can be reached on Twitter at the P1JB at THE P1JB, and of course, I can be found on Facebook as well. And Hayes is going to talk about our Facebook group and all that good stuff.
Yes, you can follow me personally before we get into that at CEO Haize, CEOHAIZE. You can follow us collectively at the Film Bros Pod. You can follow our Facebook discussion group at the Film Frequency Podcast. I think is the way that the full one is, or just the Film Frequency. Search it, you'll find us. Make sure you look for us on YouTube as well. Lastly, if you want to send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, that is the Film Frequency Pod at gmail.com, where you can send those suggestions and anything else going in. I would like to see some more interaction as we keep going with our listeners and our viewers. So we're open and we will definitely play your content and speak on anything you send us. So do that going forward. But other than that, that's it for this week. We're out this motherfucker.
Peace.
Peace. That's the way to do it, bro. We knocked out a mini and a full episode, and yeah, I just off the top, the way
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.